Warm welcome to this lecture series on organizational behavior. We are in this chapter on interpersonal behavior at workplace. I am Dr. MP Ganesh from IIT Hyderabad. This is the second lecture in this chapter. I'll quickly summarize what happened in the previous lecture. So we defined what is interpersonal behavior. So interpersonal behavior is interaction between more than one people, or it is interaction between a people to people or person to person. In very simple words, we can define it as the way people interact with each other. In workplace, interpersonal behavior is a very important dimension which has to be understood, because the interpersonal dynamics within the organization influences the way people cooperate and work together. In workplace, it can range from positive work behavior to negative work behavior. So the positive work behavior are called as prosocial behavior. Prosocial means positive social behavior. Deviant behavior or deviant organizational behaviors are behaviors which are harmful for the organization and also for others in the organization. So in this particular chapter, we are going to look at a whole range of these behaviors, starting from prosocial behavior to negative behaviors. Okay. So before we start, we spoke about psychological contract and the importance of understanding psychological contract. So psychological contract, in simple words, are unwritten contract between two people. So it is the perception of an individual about what are his or her responsibilities in that particular relationship and what are his or her obligations in that particular relationship. We also looked at, in work context, psychological contract can be of two types: transactional contract and relational contract. We also looked at trust as a very important concept in interpersonal relationship. Trust is the degree of confidence on others, to what extent you have confidence on the other person. So trust also means there is some level of dependence on the other person on whom you are placing the trust. Since trust is based on psychological contract, it is unwritten, so there is always a risk. Since you are depending on someone positively without any evidence, without any formal contract, it always involves certain level of risk. We also looked at different types of trust. We also looked at how to build trust within an organization, or how to build trust between two people. So one important aspect of building trust, if you have to be trustworthy, one important aspect of it is it will take a lot of time. Two, if you want to create trust on you among others, you need to trust yourself. So people who are high in self-esteem and self-confidence, it is relatively easy for them to make others trust them. So this is where we stopped in the previous class. So this particular lecture, we will talk about prosocial behavior. So what is prosocial behavior? Prosocial behavior means positive social behavior. So what are positive social behaviors? Behaviors which help the society, or behaviors which help in the smooth running of a particular social group, which is called prosocial behavior. In very simple words, prosocial behavior can be as simple as helping others in your society or in your social group. In organization context, it can be helping behavior, it can be tolerating trouble, minor trouble in the social group, and all those things. In fact, prosocial behavior is found among many animal species which live in groups. So in fact, any social group, if it has to survive, it need to have members who shows positive social behavior. So if members don't show positive social behavior in a group, the group slowly will start it'll have a negative impact. So the group will dissemble. The group will stop to exist at some point if members don't show positive behavior towards one another. There are a lot of research on positive social behavior in animals, among animal groups, especially primates, monkeys, ants, and also among human beings. In fact, prosocial behavior is a very important topic in social psychology, because without prosocial behavior, a social group cannot exist. In workplace context also, prosocial behavior is considered to be a very important behavior which has to be nurtured among members of the organization. Okay. Prosocial behavior is studied under many names in organizational context. There are a lot of research done on prosocial behavior in organizational context. One important terminology or one important name which is given to prosocial behavior, or in one way in which prosocial behavior is understood in organizational context, is organizational citizenship behavior. So organizational citizenship behavior means behaviors the citizens of the organizations exhibit which help the organization, or people who feel that they are citizens of a particular organization, they exhibit these behaviors. When people feel they belong to that organization, they feel that they are one, all the members of the organization are one, they tend to exhibit these behaviors. Organizational citizenship behaviors are also called under another taxonomy called extra role behaviors. So extra role behaviors are behaviors which an employee shows or performs which is not prescribed within the job description. So like I said earlier, work performance or work behavior can be clearly prescribed by job description, but there are some behaviors which may not fall under this job description or formal job requirement. So these behaviors are called extra role behaviors, beyond your role, and these extra role behaviors are positive in nature and they help the organization become a very positive work environment. They are also called as social lubricant of the organization. Like for a machinery, if you want a machine to run smoothly, you need lubrication, you need certain lubricants to smoothen the process, otherwise there will be friction. If there is friction, it will bring down the efficiency of that particular machine. So lubricants play an important role in improving the efficiency and also effectiveness of the machinery. Similarly, organizational citizenship behaviors or these prosocial behaviors in workplace, they are very important to increase the smooth running of the organization or to nurture the efficiency or effectiveness of the organization. So these behaviors, because they are will not come under the boundaries of job description, it is very difficult to evaluate them. If it is prescribed in job description, you can clearly set targets, or if you can clearly set criteria to say somebody is performing well or somebody is not performing up to the mark. But because extra role behaviors are unwritten behaviors, unwritten performances, it is very difficult to say this person has performed well or this person has not performed up to the mark. And also another problem in measuring extra role performance is you cannot reward them. If you remember in one of those earlier chapters, we spoke about rewarding certain behaviors, voluntary behaviors. So what will happen if you reward voluntary behaviors? In fact, we spoke about this in money as a motivator. If you reward voluntary behaviors like this, like behaviors like helping behavior in workplace, those behaviors will reduce, or the rate in which people exhibit these behaviors will come down, because they feel somebody is quantifying my noble behavior, somebody is quantifying or paying price to my good character. Okay, so many of these behaviors are better not to be rewarded using monetary rewards. You can reward them by other ways. You can reward them by appreciation, you can reward them by recognition and all those things. So these behaviors are very difficult to capture or measure or to reward formally. So many a times these things are rewarded through non-material or non-monetary rewards. Okay. In fact, these behaviors are also called as contextual performance. So contextual performance means behaviors which will not directly influence your production in an organization, but as a context. Context means it will improve the work culture, it will improve the climate of the organization, it will make people happy and things like that, which will indirectly influence the way people perform in an organization. So these are some of the things about prosocial behavior. So organizational citizenship behavior can be of different behaviors. There are many behaviors which come under organizational citizenship behavior. In fact, the authors or the researchers whose Organ and Dennis, there are two authors, Organ and Dennis, they studied these behaviors in workplace. They come up with 5 different types of citizenship behaviors in workplace. The first one is altruism. Altruism means helping behavior. You are helping someone without expecting anything in return. So in fact, altruism as a concept is very popular in social psychology. Altruism means helping, but in a very strict sense, helping without expecting anything in return. The second behavior is conscientiousness, which means following the rules even if nobody is observing you. So many times, organizations feel that we need to have monitoring mechanisms to ensure people follow rules. For example, all these CCTV cameras or all these records which ensure that rules are clearly followed will not help in long run, because you cannot keep monitoring rule compliance 24/7, and also 24/7 monitoring rule compliance means you are not trusting your employees. So if you don't trust your employees will not trust you. Okay. So what will help is in long run, when employees or members of a social group feel that they have to be responsible, they have to follow the rules, not because somebody else is observing. We have to follow rules because it is good for the society. For example, traffic rules. It's not like only when there is a signal and a CCTV camera we have to follow the traffic rules. We have to follow the traffic rules because if you don't follow traffic rules, it may cause inconvenience for you and as well as for others. Okay. So members who feel, or members who are matured enough to understand this, and they also understand that they also have responsibility. It's not like somebody has responsibility in following rules, I don't have. Okay. So if they feel all of us have responsibility, especially as an individual, I have to contribute. So if people feel like that, they will be very internally motivated to follow the rules without any external monitoring. So these behaviors are called consciousness behaviors. The third set of behaviors in organizational citizenship behavior is civic virtue. Civic virtue means treating common resources with responsibility. In simple words, common resources means things which don't belong to any one particular individual in the group. It belongs to everyone. For example, in societies, things like public transport, bus or train or public tap or road or park, public spaces. So all those things are common resources. It belongs to everyone. Nobody owns them. So civic virtue means treating those common resources responsibly. For example, in a day-to-day life, not throwing waste here and there, just putting it in a dustbin, and also not damaging public property, conserving public resources. If there is a tap which is overflowing or leaking in public area, a public tap, you should ensure that somebody repairs it, or you should repair it if you know how to do it. You should make it proper, conserving resources. So civic virtue is that. In organizational context, it might be like, let's say AC is on, but nobody is in that room, so you go and switch off the AC. Okay, or if somebody has forgotten to close the tap, you close the tap. Okay, so this is civic virtue. Sportsmanship is minor inconveniences in the organization. If you don't make fuss out of it, take things in a very sportive manner. Okay, or if there are inconveniences, don't make a big deal about them. Or if you can resolve it, or if you want to complain somewhere, you complain it, but don't make a big fuss out of it. So those kind of behaviors are sportsmanship behaviors. For example, if there is like a long queue for food in the canteen, some people crib a lot, but some people, they don't crib, they take it sportively. Okay, so that is sportsmanship. Courtesy is being respectful towards others. Okay, so being kind to others in the social group, treating others with respect, all those things. Okay, even if they belong to lower level in the organization, showing respect to others. So in fact, all these 5 behaviors are very, very important, because these behaviors help organizations have cordial relationship between its members. So how to nurture these behaviors? One, you cannot directly reward them, but you can use recognition, non-monetary rewards like recognition or appreciation and things like that. Another long-term way in which you can encourage this in organization is when the organizations are fair and just. If you remember, in one of the previous chapters on motivation, we looked at fairness and equity or justice climate. The importance of justice climate is when people feel they are treated fairly, the organization treats them with respect, the organization treats them with fairness, then they will feel they belong to the organization. Once people feel they belong to the organization, they will take responsibility to their behavior and also go beyond what is expected from their roles. Okay, so like I said, altruism or pro-social behaviors are very important in encouraging helping behavior in the organization. They act as social lubricants. One important way in which pro-social behaviors help organization is they nurture cooperation. Okay, so pro-social behaviors are without expecting anything, you do something. The next level of interpersonal behavior at workplace is cooperation. So what is cooperation? Cooperation means helping each other. So unlike altruism, in altruism you help someone without expecting anything in return. But in cooperation, people help each other keeping in mind that the other person will also help, or they help others because there is some level of interdependency. Interdependency means I depend on the other person and the other person depends on me to fulfill a task. Okay, so cooperation happens when people understand that they are interdependent, they have to work together because they need to achieve the common goal. So for that they need to help each other. Okay, so helping each other in order to achieve a mutual goal or in order to get benefited mutually because they share a goal. Okay, so this is what is cooperation. There's another extreme end of cooperation, or the opposite of cooperation is competition. Okay, so in cooperation people come together, they see they depend on each other and then they want to get mutually benefited and then they help each other. That is cooperation. In competition also people come together. Okay, they come together, they understand that they are interdependent. If I have to win, that person has to help me, or that person has to do something. My winning depends on that person. Okay, so I need to compete with them. So that is where cooperation and competition differ. Both in cooperation competition there is an interdependency. People depend on each other, But in competition, people or the parties in that situation take a competing approach, which means if I have to win, the other person has to lose. But cooperation is, if the other person wins, I will also win, or we both can win together. That is cooperation. If you understand we both can win together, then they will help each other. But in competition, when people see, no, if I have to win, the other person has to lose, okay, or the resources are limited, so if I have to take more, the other person has to take less. If that is the case, competition will happen. Let's say in cooperation there is dependency for resource. Let's say there is a resource, we understand that, okay, we both depend on this resource. So instead of fighting for the resource, let's come together and find out a solution where we can optimally use this resource so that both of us get benefited. Okay, so that is the difference between competition and cooperation. So interdependency is common in both the situations, both in cooperation and competition. But interdependency, how you go forward from that, is many a times the choice people make in that particular situation. Okay, and also this interdependency can be of different forms. Interdependency in terms of resources, interdependency in terms of process, interdependency in terms of common resources which are available. So many interdependencies can happen. Okay, there are also some situations where mixed motives can also happen, which means same situation, part of it you can cooperate, part of it you can compete. Okay, for example, let's say two states in India, they are interdependent in terms of water sharing. There is a river which flows between two states. So these two states depend on each other because they need to share the common resource, which is the river. Okay, so both of them, what they can do, they can ensure that the catchment area is widened. Both the states, they can build dams, smaller dams, or they can plant more trees so that more rain happens in that area. So they can cooperate in doing that. At the same time, they will also compete in terms of who gets more water from the dams. Okay, so similarly, technology sharing between two organizations. For example, some organizations cooperate in certain areas, but certain areas they compete. For example, Samsung company and Apple, they cooperate in certain technologies. In certain technologies, they compete. Okay, so it is possible to have both the situations in the same scenario also, same context also. Okay. So like I said, many situations, whether people cooperate or compete depends on their perception. It's also about their personal qualities. Some people, they always look at situations as competing situations. Some people look at situations as, okay, let's see first whether we can cooperate. Okay, so it also depends on individual differences. So based on individual differences, we can classify people into 4 categories. The first category is competitors. So these people always see situations where there is interdependency as competing situations. I have to do better than others, or I have to win, and if I have to win, others has to lose. So those people are competitors. Individuals are similar to competitors, but they don't see winning or losing. They don't see the situation as winning and losing. They see the situation as, I need to get more. I need to increase my gain. So increasing my gain doesn't mean that others should lose. Sometimes, in fact, increasing your gain means you need to help others. You need to partner with others. So individuals, they tend to differ or use different strategies depending on whether that situation requires competition or collaboration. If they want to compete, they will compete. If they want to collaborate, they will collaborate. But their aim is to maximize their gain. The third category is cooperators, opposite of competitors. They always look for an opportunity to cooperate. You know, the first step they do in any situation, any social interaction is, how can we maximize benefits for everyone? Win-win situation, you know, I can also win, they can also win. So those kind of people are called cooperators. Equalizers are always, they'll compare themselves with others, similar to competitors. Okay, they'll compare themselves with others, but for them the objective is to minimize the difference. So, which means not maximizing gain, which is to make the other person come to their level, okay, or increasing your output so that difference between you and others is less. So this is like either you pull the other person down so that the difference is less, or you increase your performance so that you become close to others who are at the top. So this kind of people are called equalizers. Okay, so I will stop here because in the next concept we are going to talk about an interesting concept called competition, which is opposite of cooperation. Till then, take care. We'll meet in the next lecture.